Fair enough. All right, so we are all here. We're properly live.
Yes.
Okay. So we're gonna just do a quick quick roll call. Yeah. So very quickly, we just do a roll call because we
Yes,
slightly different now when we
absolutely.
started.
Michael Aronson, here. Nina Aaron, here. Carla Elliott, here. Robert Bowker,
Here.
Eric Talbot,
Here.
Brenda Burbank, here. And Seth Roy.
Very good. I'm here, and Brenda will be eligible to vote today because we have board member Isabel is not here. And I'll just note for the record again that Carla Elliott is here today as a full board member, taking Ulysses Castillo's place on the board after he left us prior to our last meeting. So welcome, Carla.
Thank you.
We are now going to have a motion to approve minutes.
Bobby Bowker making a motion to approve the minutes from March 28th meeting.
I have a second. All right. Any objections? No objections. Motion carries. Minutes are passed. I would just like to note that we did do this before. We're not rushing through this. This is, we've looked at this. We had an issue with a technical issue, but we're good to go. Those minutes are approved, and we're now going to go back into the agenda. I think so. Yeah. So yeah. I'm thinking that probably just in fairness now, the folks who may have people present for this meeting, we were mistakenly under the impression that folks were not. That applicants were not in the Zoom room because we were in the wrong Zoom room. So I would like to, if you don't mind, we're going to take a step back. We'll come back to and kind of rework where we were, which was up to item B. So we're going to go back to item A on new business of the board. This is BAR 17/2022. This is 31 Clinton Avenue, and this is a BAR application. So do we have the applicant for 31 Clinton in the room?
Still don't see her or her architect.
Okay. Same as before, we'll see if they're here by the time we're completed with new business. Now we'll try then for 214-236 South Highland, McDonald's. Good. All right.
Hi, Karen.
And all right, so as we're bringing the applicant in, Valerie, if you could just give us a super high level introduction of what we're looking at today with this application.
Sure. So this application's here for site plan amendment for interior remodeling and drive-through improvements. This application does require county board notification as well as notification to the village of Briarcliff because it's within 500 feet from the adjacent municipality. For seeker, it's considered a type 2 action, so there's no additional seeker review that's necessary from this board.
Excellent. All right. So with that, I guess we have someone in here just to present, and we can get the drawings up. So just as a reminder for folks, folks in this room will be controlling the screen. So any drawings, if you're presenting remotely, the computer will be controlled on our end. So we just make sure that everything that's being shown is something that's been publicly posted already. So with that, I'll hand it off. And yeah, you can turn off the mute.
Good evening. And it looks like I'm in the sunset here. So apologies for that. For the record, I'm Karen Majanowski with Bowler Engineering on behalf of McDonald's this evening for review of an amended site plan of their existing location in the Arcadian Shopping Center where they are an end cap in that plaza there. Very minor improvements are proposed this evening for the project. They are proposing to add a third drive-through window to help with efficiency. And in doing so, and I don't know if the site plan can be shared on your end, but I can certainly walk through that. But that third drive-through window would be added. Thank you. As you can see here, so essentially the functionality of the drive-through and pretty much all of the site work, with the exception of a minor area, will remain the same. As you pull through the drive-through, The first kind of rectangle you see next to the door is that first window, and then where the next two cars are parked is an existing window, and then the third window that would be added. We're proposing to pull back the curb so that a vehicle would be able to bypass any vehicles that are parked waiting for their food and be able to exit the drive-through lane. There's a third car shown as an additional pull forward space where employees would be able to actually walk the food out, which is a configuration that they have at other locations. So the benefit here, while they're making these improvements, is to have that bypass. It does achieve the weighting that you have today, which we're essentially relocating along the building, and creates a safer drive-through configuration.
And I think there's a couple of parking spots, right, that are being eliminated as part of this change. Can you just point those out on the plan or help us see?
Certainly. So just plan north of the cars along the building, you see those two pull forward spaces. So essentially we're not losing any because one is added with the third drive-through window, and then the other is in front of that with the pull forward space where employees can actually walk up to the vehicle versus crossing over the drive-through lane to the previous pull forward spaces.
Okay, and just describe just for us, the purpose of those pull forward spaces before was just for people just to pull in and stop while they were. Can you just describe the function of those spaces?
Yeah, so those are for if your food is not ready, they would ask you to pull forward essentially over and park into those spaces and bring out the food when it is ready to keep customers moving through the line.
Got it. And so what you're saying is, and just so to make sure I understand, is to clarify it for all of us hopefully here, is the third drive-through window plus the additional pull forward space kind of at the end up against the building are kind of in your presentation. Those are those replacement, those replace those two spots that you're taking away.
That's correct. It's essentially a replacement of that, and now vehicles can bypass on the far side away from the building.
And just for village staff, those two spots were not part of any required parking or
No,
other site plan requirements.
no.
Okay, I mean, are there any? Yeah, I'll kind of start with staff here right now. Just maybe Valerie first, and then over to you, Tony. Just anything that we need to be asking or looking at here.
No, I mean, I think the only two things we raised were that, one, that the traffic with the dealing with the two spot decrease, which I think you already took care of, and that we just recommended dimensions of the new proposed exterior signs.
Tony?
The only thing we had is they had a stop sign detail. They left that out. They had the, I think, keep left sign on there, and just the final plan, make sure that the signed and sealed. That was the only two things we had.
Okay. Board members, questions?
No, pretty self-explanatory.
Okay, yeah, I do a lot of heads shaking. I know there was a potential, there's some changes to the exterior, but I think that we've looked at this, that they're minor and fall under the category of it's not requiring a full VAR review, which I think as long as everybody in this room agrees with, I think that seems pretty straightforward. Nothing major changing. Okay, so then with that, we have a motion to open up a public hearing on this item.
Michael Aaron's the motion to open a public hearing.
Bobby Bowker, second that motion.
Objections? Objections, the motion carries. We're now in a public hearing. So is there anybody from the public to speak to this application? I can start off in the room. If you're in this room here to speak to this application, you can raise your hand. And I don't see anybody in this room raising their hand. And similarly on Zoom, you can use a hand raise function if you would like to speak to this application. And I'm looking at the attendees list and I do not see any hands going up. So, Maddie, was there no emails or other correspondence? All right. So we have not heard anything from the public on this. So I think given that, I have a motion to close the public hearing on this application.
Eric Talbot, I make the motion to close the public hearing.
How did be a second motion?
All right, motion carries. Any objections? No objections, the motion carries. So public hearing is closed. And I think this is, pretty straightforward. I think we have a couple of minor conditions that, that Valerie and Tony outlined, which I think should be part of any site plan resolution. But I think with that,
This application though needs a referral, so it will have to wait for another month, so it might behoove the applicant just to address those comments and just reissue like new plans, and so that way you can just adopt without any conditions.
okay, that makes sense. So, pending those, just go back to my other set of notes, but yeah, so pending those referrals, we have a motion to adjourn this application until those referrals are through.
Nina Aaron, motion to adjourn.
Bobby Bowker, I second that motion.
Any objections? No objections. Okay, so I think we know where we are. We're going to adjourn for this meeting, and then we'll see you back when those referrals are through.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you all for your time.
Alrighty. Okay. So I'm now going to move on to item C, on the agenda. So this is 196 North Highland. So all right, so JV's going to come up here and present for this. Before we jump into this, Valerie, if you could just
All right.
reiterate. You really well, Pat, you rehearsed at this one.
I know. All right, so this application is before the board for site plan and conditional use, as well as Board of Architectural Review. This application was before, or there was an approval back in 2018. Everything has subsequently been all expired, and so the village is looking at this as a new application. This will also require referral to Westchester County, and for seeker, it is an unlisted action, and so the board may declare its intent to be lead agency, so we can have the applicant update the environmental assessment form and start distributing to the involved and interested agencies.
Okay, excellent. JV, so you can give us a walk through your plans,
Okay.
and we'll go from there.
This project was previously approved it had approval under Planning Board 21-18. It's a mixed-use building. It has a commercial space at the bottom, and there's 8 units on the top, 6 2-bedrooms, 2 1-bedrooms, and one of them is going to be allocated for affordable housing. You want to go to the last picture?
For the photos?
Yeah, and then we go back. Okay, so on the top you see pictures of the site in its current state. So you can see the topography and the brick building, the one-story brick building to the right, and the large house with a fence to the left. And as you can, the proposed work is going to be removing a substantial part of the topography here and having a flat driveway coming into the area. So if you go down one more picture, there you go. So similar to what you see in the adjacent building. So we have a retaining wall on the side and the rear with the landscaping on the top. And this will bring me to that side elevation.
Okay.
You want to stay here? Go
Well,
all the way up.
let me choose for the record.
Yeah.
So on the side plan, the bottom portion is, or the first floor is going to have the retail and the storage area. Originally, this was approved as a bakery. We have 18 parking spaces. There is the line of the building of the floors above is almost double the size of the first floor. And if you see the dotted line in front of the parking spaces, that is the line of the building above. And we have a row of columns, which we have every 2 parking spaces that will be supporting the second floor. So again, that's the foundation. So this is the layout of the apartment. So you can tell this is the building is much larger on the second and third level. We have gone through the calculations and demonstrated that we comply with all the habitable spaces from the code. And this is the view from Highland Avenue. That is the one-story brick building to your right. And also, if you see where what we have done is we have extended the facade so you don't see the cutout behind it. So from where the opening is to the end of the building, that's just like a thin wall to kind of cover the parking. So you don't see the parking from Highland Avenue, from the sidewalk.
So the garage entrance is from Highland
Yes.
and the exit is.
Yep. Again, this is the site elevation from prior discussion in 2018, 2018. We do show the outline of the brick building because the proximity of the facade to the property line doesn't allow us to put many windows, but we do have a building adjacent to it, so we feel it doesn't interrupt with have impact on the elevation. In this elevation, you see the outline of the grade from the back and how the topography goes uphill. So you see from the rear of the property, you're going to see the roof of the car park underneath. And if you go down to, so the side elevation, that is drawn from the perspective of being on the parking lot.
So,
Behind you in the foreground, there is a retaining wall.
but it's deceiving, right? Because it's looking, from this drawing, like that's one big facade, but in reality, those doors and windows are like underneath in the shade, like 20 feet back.
Right, so in the for the future presentation, we can show the shades and shadows.
Okay.
Study. And
So,
again, the store goes around the corner, so you see part of the storefront towards the parking area, and the other one is towards.
Maybe is the entire parking area covered by the building mass?
No, it should, if you go back, it should one side of the parking lot.
Okay.
To the side plan, please.
So you have 18 spots.
wait a second, can we go to that last shot? 'Cause I think that last shot was pretty telling, right? So that's where you don't have the thin wall. It's like right there.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Right, so those two window bays extend, those go all the way from like the Cedar Lane side to the, to the Route 9 side. And that's all covered underneath there.
Yes,
And so those windows that were the storefront and everything that we're looking at, that looks kind of nice and pretty on that long facade is really, it's like you're in the mall and there's like the entrance under the parking lot.
Yes.
It's not at all like what it appears.
but you do have natural light from the front, because you do have two windows.
You may have, there may be a little bit of natural light. That would have to be almost like a 24-hour lit space down there, right? That's.
No, I'm saying the retail space
Yeah,
it has windows on both
facing
sides.
Route 9, right? No,
Yes.
that I realize.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we all kind of are seeing this now correctly. At least for me, this is unveiling itself. Okay. So I think we can kind of start talking about, yeah.
Question. Besides, this was the Morgado project, right?
Yes,
Besides the change of use of the commercial space, what is being changed now between what was approved and what is being proposed? What are the big changes?
no, interior layout, we kind of work out that because we were doing construction documents, we kind of work out some of the layout of the apartment. I can bring a comparison to from the last time with the materials. I think the materials,
There's no like wholesale changes?
no. No, the elevation, yeah.
The elevations are the same and the
Yeah.
materials are the same, because I.
Materials,
For 5 years.
yeah, so I will bring a copy of the materials.
Okay.
I know the village has had a new comprehensive planning process since this was originally, you went through this board. So, there's some changes. We definitely want to make sure that we're looking at this, based on the current plan and kind of
You're not seeking any variances, right?
No, no variances. I think we need a site plan approval, conditional use, and VAR.
And the conditional use is for the residential.
Yes.
So can we go back to the site plan? I mean, this is one of the things that kind of like stuck out to me, and this is, I think, this is certainly a difference, but regardless. So, this is, supposedly, a mixed use project. If we zoom in on the commercial component of this,
7 square feet.
I think it actually says 500 and change on the plan. It's like we've got this big building, which looks twice as big as it is because because of the parking, which is, it's underneath the building. It's, it reads as part of the building, and we got this teeny little thing of commercial on the sidewalk on this
Yeah.
major road. I've got a problem with that, right? So like if this is really mixed use, like where's the public benefit? Where's the streetscape? Where's the commercial component in this NC district?
Sort of residential building right to the left of it. You're looking straight
Right.
on, right? It's like 2
Yes.
doors down. It's like a
No,
5.
it's next door.
Right next door.
Yes,
That's 100% residential.
that's 100% residential. If you continue down, there's also residential on that side of the street.
That's commercial, it's not us.
But I don't think that it's, I mean, as long as it's mixed use, from the past, we've gone through this, there is a balance of, if there's something that says how much commercial, how much residential we can have.
No, we would, but it's one of the things that we're looking at in terms of the conditional use approval and in
Planning
terms
process.
of the planning process in general. And there's like it's like almost like a dumbbell plan where you have this storage space on the back end. It's labeled storage, which is the same, right? So it's almost the exact same size as so you have labeled as commercial. I think in one of those drawings in there that said office, but it says storage here. So can we talk about what that space is?
Well, right now it's gonna be for, I think it's the meters that we have there. So we've gone through the process of retail is not something that we have been able to.
Yeah.
Yes,
We're talking about the storage.
that's the storage, yeah,
That'd be like tenant storage, like.
that's, it's a storage for the building, it can be for the tenant and.
It's as big as the
Oh, I
retail
thought you said,
space.
that's a small retail space.
No, the mechanics.
Yeah, there's a mechanical closet.
Yes, that's like this.
So I think I think the reason that they have the small residential is so that it doesn't become. So it conforms to the zoning, because you can't have residential on the first floor.
Right.
But I don't know how reasonable that space is gonna be able to rent out such a small.
Well, right now, any large retail spaces are not being very rentable, so we look to get somebody's office or.
Yeah, in today's market, it's definitely easier to rent the smaller commercial office space, retail spaces are definitely more rentable than the larger size ones. It's easier to rent, just the nature of the environment right now.
Is this the same owner as who originally
No,
proposed?
it's a
Oh,
different-
it's a different owner, so no bakery and, okay.
No, he sold it off once.
Okay. And can we go back to the southern exposure again? And I know you were explaining why there could only be one window. Is that because of the side yard or lot line requirements? I wasn't quite clear on
Yes.
that.
And as,
Because it sort of looks odd to me, even though granted, the adjacent building comes up halfway on the side of the facade. It's sort of awkward and it feels unbalanced, but if because of zoning requirements, you can't do anything else, then.
well, it's a building code issue, but we can try to see if we can put more dormers or, try to repeat the same feature.
So you're saying you could put more windows?
Yes.
Well, and so you've got that drawing, with that, blank facade, and I agree with that comment. I think that, having that, from a BAR perspective, have some more regularity to it. It's big, that's a really, really big wall. And then, but also in the drawing above, you can also see, that, it's the same cantilever issue that I've probably been harping on this entire time. But where the building, the residential component hangs out over the garage and actually it looks like it's going several feet past the garage. And it's kind of, I don't quite understand that. You can see there it overhangs to the north past that garage thin wall. Yeah, right there.
Right, because it goes beyond we were trying to not align the wall with the thin wall aligns with the parking spaces, but the wall above doesn't.
It looks uncomfortable. Yeah, I mean,
That's something we can look to see if we can
yeah.
extend it to the end. Yes.
I mean, I'd like to know if there are any other board comments right now, because there are, I think that we should know, and as you know, JB, there's a long list of comments that you've received at this point from both Keller Sessions and from Nelson
Yeah.
Pope. So there's a lot of work that you guys have to go on, through, related to this, to secret and site plan, and so there's a lot that needs to happen. I think it's important to have this forum where you can hear back from not just the professionals, but also us on the board, so you can plan your way forward. But
We received the comments, and I think if we can address some of those comments that the board had about the elevation, and I think an understanding of the perception of the building from Highland Avenue. And I think if we can with the lead agency, and we will come back.
yeah, I mean, and I think, yes, all of those things. This is maybe me louder than anybody else here, but just that whole, if any other board members disagree with me, or want to say something in support, or either way. But that whole kind of side of the building, that what you're referring to as a parking lot, which is, it's a garage, it's under the building, right? It's like, and for all, I'm taking whatever DOB definition interpretation that you're citing right now aside for a moment, and I acknowledge that, but experientially, it's a garage, right? You're under a space, you've got,
But some of the parking spaces, the aisle and the rest of the parking spaces are not. So you have 9 parking spaces underneath, then you have a 24-foot aisle and another 9 parking spaces that are outside.
I think whatever you can do to more clearly illustrate some of that would be really helpful.
Okay.
I think looking at that storage space, helping us understand what that really is.
Better 3D images.
Yeah.
It's hard to visualize.
Lighting,
The side without
landscaping, drainage,
connecting to it. Yeah.
There was no engineering
Yeah.
plans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what
So-
about the residential building on the other side? How is this building affecting it? I don't see that on
Yeah,
the.
we could.
We can show that.
Yeah. Right, especially if that's context, both for the conditional use and for the VAR that you're making the argument that this is consistent, that we would certainly need to see that. Because, it's an infill site, right? You've got buildings kind of left and right of it, this is kind of creating that line, and,
Commercial to the right and residential to the left.
how does this impact that rhythm? This is obviously a very major thoroughfare here. Okay, so I think based on where we are, in the feedback that we've given, we have a couple things we should take care of right now. We should, I think, open up a public hearing. So maybe we can start there, have a motion from the board.
Rick, how to make the motion to open the public hearing? I'll be back. I second that motion.
Any objections, the motion carries. So do we have anybody? I'll start off in the room from the public to speak to this application. Okay, great.
Can I sign in? Should I sign in?
So you should sign in, and then when you can come on up and just announce just kind of state your name and place of residence for the record. That'd be great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Kim DeMarco. I'm 27 Cedar Lane. I'm the little corner piece of where he's planning to build. I'm behind the white fence that you see in the diagram. We just want to know how far. First of all, we don't think there's going to be enough parking because we've been there 25, 50 years respectively, my husband and I. The lot is not big enough for what he's proposing, if he adds a retaining wall up the side of the white fence, where our corner of our property kind of meets. So that's like 3 residential houses that this is gonna affect. And were also wondering, how high the building is gonna be. We weren't, clear about that. It would invade our privacy of all 3 of our yards. But like I said, the parking there is, I just don't see that 9 car underneath. We played there for many years growing up. It's, but we want to know what kind of retaining wall. 25 Cedar Lane is the house directly behind where he is. We want to know how far, his building is going to be from our property lines, and that's.
Thank you very much. And I think those are actually all really salient site plan review questions. Looking at the retaining wall construction, looking at privacy and screening and separation from the neighbors. The height of the building is something we can look at from a screening perspective. I know that it sounds like from the review that staff has done, that the bulk of the building, this is probably a review that's still being looked at, but just in terms of code compliance from a zoning perspective. Height, bulk, all of those things need to be reviewed and meet code, and parking's in a similar boat, though I think that's also something that we'll need to have further discussions on. So thank you. Those are all important comments. Anybody else here from the public to speak to this application? Do we have anybody on Zoom? I do see one hand up on Zoom.
Mr. Arango, I think is part of 31 Clinton, if I'm correct.
Okay.
So, David, if that's the case, can you put your hand down, just to make sure? Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Avila, if you could come off mute.
Can you guys hear us?
Yes, we can. So again, just so as you come on, just introduce your name and place of residence for the record, and then you can speak to the project.
Tony Avila, we live in 25 Cedar Lane.
Great.
So we do have some questions around the plan. Certainly, I think Kim asked the question around the retaining wall and how far that's going to be from our retaining wall. Certainly, we want to know about the height. When we purchased this property, we were told that the height would not exceed where our balcony is right now. So we just want to know if that's consistent with what we were told when we purchased the property. The other thing is we have a few questions here, so give us a moment just to go through this.
The timeline.
Oh, the timeline. So if the project is approved, when are we thinking about starting the project, and when will it end? When would the project be completed?
So yeah, and that's not a question we can really answer as a board. That's something that that the applicant think about, maybe think about. They don't know when they're when or what shape any of people it looks like. So their question regarding that, this time frame, and then is a different one. So that's certainly something you can pick up with your neighbors as well.
We also have concerns around privacy, so we definitely want to understand what are we doing around privacy, especially if it's going to be higher than where the balcony is on the back. Also, there is a sewer line that is running across the property, so I know that's gonna have to be rerouted. So we want to understand what's the plan to reroute the sewer line.
Okay, and I think that's an issue. There's a very critical engineering component to this project, which from the staff memos that have been issued on this project have been highlighted with very, very seriously. So that's something that's being looked into. So that is a critical concern. Grateful for you bringing that up here. Privacy and the height of the building. I think it's for us the board is super helpful. We realize that this is a commercial district that's abutting a residential district. We very careful in considering how that gets dealt with. So that's that both neighbors who spoke to this have brought that up is important, and we thank you for that comment.
Yep, and I don't know if I mentioned this. Equally important is just the buffer between that retaining wall and our retaining wall. if I didn't mention that before.
Yeah, and I think as far as detailing and retaining walls and understanding the relationship of if there's kind of, back-to-back walls and how that's looked at. So that's something we can certainly make sure that we're looking at as we go through this review.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so I don't see any other hands on or in the room, so motion to adjourn the public hearing on this application.
Michael Clarence, motion to adjourn. Aaron, second the motion.
Okay, so at this point, I think that we've already, instructed the applicant to go back to the memos and to work through comments that the board has presented, to work through the memos the professionals have given them. And I think, the only action I think we can take tonight is to declare our intent to be lead agency. So can we have a motion from the board to that?
Bobby Bowker making a motion with intent to declare lead agency.
Michael Aaronson, second.
And we will do a roll call.
On it, Michael Aronson,
Aye.
Nina Aaron, aye, Carla Elliott, aye, Robert Bowker.
Aye.
Eric Talbot,
Aye.
Brenda Burback, aye, and Chair Roy.
Aye. All right, so the motion carries. That's with 7 ayes.
There's a
Um,
couple of corrections that need to be made in the EAF,
Yeah, I talked to,
Okay.
I'm gonna email.
and you got mine too.
Yeah.
Okay, so before it can be circulated, we
Yeah.
did that revised EAF.
So I'll email you tomorrow about the changes that need to be made.
Excellent. Very good. All right, so I think based on what we said earlier, we have gone through items B and C in the agenda. So I think it looks like we have the applicant for 31 Clinton. So bring them into the room. This is just a simple VAR application here. It is for a construction of I think it's a covered rear yard deck. So if we bring the applicant in, we can let them present.
Gail and David, you are here.
Yes, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, are you able to turn your cameras on, folks?
Let's see.
Camera doesn't work.
I'm on a new device and I don't know I don't see a camera icon.
Okay,
It's
no worries.
all right.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't see a camera icon.
Don't worry about it. The drawings will be posted on our end. And hopefully you can see them on your screen and you can just give us a kind of a brief description of the work that you're proposing to do here.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is David Orango. I am helping Mrs. Claudia Mullers for the presentation for today for Kington Avenue in Nothing in New York. The project is a new renovation of the existing house, and they are proposing, rebuild the deck in the rear. If you see in the photo here in the left, is an existing deck, but is in a really poor conditions. And Mrs. Rosenthal wants, to rebuild it, in better shape. We make a couple, alterations. We switch the stairs to the right size. If you see the photo from the front, from the back, and she want to put in like a little roof over from some area in the deck to cover that one. And, because the deck is in really bad shape, all the materials pretty much they need to be new. They want to put in like a metal roof, and they want to make the decking will be like a Trex, the composite decking, and they have some columns will be, wrap it up. And we have some, I don't know if you, oh, yes, please, can you zoom into the site plan, please? Thank you. If you see the red one is the existing deck, and overimposed is the new deck from that one. And the dotted line you see over is the new roof area from the metal deck, metal roofing, sorry. I think we can go to the elevations we have in the other page. Yep, that is pretty much the idea from the from the back to rebuild the area. You see what is the area covered with the new metal roof, and the area is exposed. And some area in the stairs, you know, what is the landing is covered with the metal roofing.
All right, can we maybe speak quickly about the materials that you've listed here?
Okay, the materials we want to use in it for the decking, we want to use in a composite decking. I think is I don't know if I think they have submitted the material things. Yep. Okay. That is the decking, and the railing will be a metal rail with vertical spindles and cables. I think
That's the previous
Now there's.
material.
that one is the sample of, yeah, that one.
Okay.
And the
Sorry,
roof,
the color of the, just for the record, the color of that metal rail and spindle is roughly represented by that.
the metal railing is a wood handrail. And I presume Mrs. Rosenthal one, the metal structure would be black, I presume, with the cables, with the spindles, you know, vertical, like you see there.
Metal finish, or is it like a color finish? I just want to make sure we have a clear definition of what's being approved here.
Yeah, okay, and the roof is a charcoal color. I think it's also into the samples of the for the this is for
That's the siding.
the siding. That is the names. It's a hardy plan.
The siding chips.
Yep. And this is the decking, and that is the color one. I don't know if you have the color for the roof. I think we submitted, but if not, I can show you. I have a
Okay.
oh, is that you see?
There it is, yeah.
That is the charcoal color for the roofing material.
All right. So I see that you've got the siding, the trim, and the metal roof colors all defined on this.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think that seems pretty clear.
What? That wasn't in the submission.
Yes,
This came from our end.
Okay.
it's
Oh, okay, the
Yep.
color scheme. Okay.
Okay, so board members, questions?
No.
Okay, pretty straightforward. All right. We have a motion to open a public hearing.
you make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second motion.
Any objections? No objections. Motion carries. We're now in the public hearing. Is there anybody in here to speak to this application? The room, I do not see any hands. Is there anybody on Zoom? You can use the hand raise function if you would like to speak to this application. I do not see any hands. Can I have a motion? Or did we get any correspondence or any other? Nothing came from the public electronically. We have a motion to close the public hearing on the application.
Bobby Backer making a motion to close public hearing.
Michael Aaron's, go ahead, Nine. Nine Aaron second.
Any objections? No objections. Motion carries. Public hearing is closed. All right, Valerie, is there anything that we didn't discuss or ask that we needed to?
Nope.
All right. Okay, so we have a motion to, and I think we're good with color. They had a very thorough mission in that respect. So I don't think we really have any conditions here either. That any other than the standard conditions. Can I have a motion to approve the BAR application?
Michael Aronson, motion to approve the VAR. Nina Aaron, second.
And roll call.
Michael Aronson,
Aye.
Nina Aaron,
Aye.
Carla Elliott, Robert Bowker,
Aye.
Eric Talbot,
Aye.
Rhonda Burback, and Chair Roy.
Aye. Okay, so the motion carries with 7 ayes. All right, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
All right, so we are going to move forward now. We're up to continuing business. So the first item of continuing business is BAR 05-2023. This is 51 Lincoln Avenue. So bring the applicant up. Welcome. All right. Want to just give us a quick update from where we are from last meeting.
Sure. So we submitted updated drawings which showed the site elevation as requested. Took a couple extra like neighborhood shots of the surrounding houses. And the architect went and put all the sort of the materials on there, like cedar siding, and I think it's aluminum what do they call it, gutters. I submitted another updated closer photo of the shed, which is the blue color that the house is in. I think it's the old photo.
And that's the spirit. That's the siding material, and then you're going with the
Yes.
color that was shown in the shed.
Yep.
Those are all the existing photos. Okay, and then then we have. These were the previously submitted, the 331. These are the new.
331, what's loading now is the new.
Got it. All right.
That's looking out in front of the house. That's the view looking right from the front of the house. That is a close-up of the shed, the blue color. We're gonna, go to Benjamin Moore, Home Depot, just have them match it because we bought the house like that, so we have no idea what color it is, but we like it. And that's the view from looking left.
Yeah, hopefully everybody was able to go through all those materials as well. I think it was a lot clearer. Yeah, this go around with in terms of what we saw last time. So just open up to the board for any questions. I don't see any questions brewing. Okay, I think we opened a public hearing on this last time. Can I have a motion to reopen the public hearing?
Eric Talbot, I make the motion to reopen the public hearing. Bobby Bowser, second that motion.
And any objections? Is there anybody here from the public to speak to this application or in the room? Do not see any hands. Anybody on Zoom? I do not see any hands, and I'm looking at Maddie. She's shaking her head that nobody sent anything electronically. Okay. Can we have a motion to close the public hearing on this application?
Michael Aronson, motion to close the public hearing.
Nina Aaron, second the motion.
Okay. And I'll just, Valerie, is there anything that we haven't looked at or asked?
No, and the applicant provided all the requested information from the board.
Right. I think we've had a chance to look at that. And all right, so can I have a motion to approve the application?
Bobby Bowser making a motion to approve BAR.
Second the motion.
And let's do a roll call.
Michael Aronson. Hi. Nina Aaron. Hi. Carla Elia. Hi. Robert Bowker.
Aye.
Eric Talbot.
Aye.
Brenda Burback. Aye. And Chair Roy.
Aye. All right, very good. So the motion carries 7 ayes. All right, thank you very much.
Perfect. And just question in terms of timeline for next steps, in terms of sending the approval of the building department to get the permit issue.
Yeah, I'll defer to staff. I think that goes.
Right, so we'll start with submission to the building department, and we also have to draft a resolution for approval. So it will be, I don't know. Yeah, just a few weeks to pull that.
Okay. Everything, the building department we're fully ready to go other than approval. So
Yes.
once we get approval, then we can. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our next continuing business item is BAR 06-2023 44 Narragansett. This is another BAR application that we looked at, I believe, last meeting. And I think that since we last looked at this, there's been a ZBA approval on this. Is that
Correct.
okay? So there's nothing outstanding with ZBA or anywhere else. So at this point, we're free to do our final review. Okay, so I think so. We looked at this last go around. I think that the only change or clarification on the drawings was regarding a question that we had regarding the stair risers. Correct? That was updated as a is a stucco or a stone riser?
What you had asked last time was actually for the stone that was going to be used in the front of the home,
Treads.
which the architect listed as, I believe it was blue stone.
Okay.
And should have sent an email as well. Attached here.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So the stucco riser and bluestone tread. I think we had a pretty thorough conversation about this last go around now, and we weren't able to make a final determination because of the zoning question. At this point, any other board member questions?
No, I think that answered the question.
Okay. And we have a motion to, we opened a public hearing last time to reopen the public hearing.
Eric Talbot, make the motion to reopen the public hearing. Bobby Bauer, second one.
Any objections? No objections. Is there anybody here in the room to speak to this application? I do not see any hands online. So you can use the hand raise function on Zoom. And I do not see any hands up. And I'm assuming, or I will guess that I correctly see head shaking. There's nobody submitted anything online. Okay, so with that, nobody's here to speak. We have a motion to close the public hearing on this application.
Michael Aaron's a motion to close the public hearing.
Aaron, second the motion.
Any objections? No objections. Motion carries. The public hearing is closed. We've, I think, been through everything on this. I think at this point it's safe to move a motion to approve the BAR application.
Eric Talbot, make the motion to approve the BAR application.
Need a second motion.
And we will do a roll call.
Michael Aronson.
Aye.
Nina Aaron.
Aye.
Carla Elliott. Aye. Robert Bowker.
Aye.
Eric Talbot.
Aye.
Brenda Burback. Aye. Chair Roy.
Aye, very good. The motion passes with 7 ayes. So thank you very much.
Thank you, folks. Have a good night.
All right, you too.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so we're gonna now move on. So we're up to item C on the agenda. So this is planning board 05/2023. 81-89 South Highland Avenue, which is also in Birchbrook. So I guess Valerie, if you can just kind of update us. I know we looked at this last meeting, and just give us a high level.
Yeah, so this was looked at last meeting, and the applicant confirmed that everything is exactly as was approved just a few years ago, and their approvals ran out, and so they're seeking reapprovals. This application also has ZBA variance, which is still technically current until May. So if this board wishes to move forward with this application tonight, you would be able to. It did require a county referral. Again, that referral went out and was received from the county, and they basically provided the same comments as last time, which the applicant ultimately ended up addressing.
Okay, and so just to be clear, so we're looking at reapproving the final subdivision, site plan, and wetlands approvals.
That's
right?
Wetlands, I believe, is an extension, not a reapproval.
Okay.
The other two could no longer be extended, so that's why they had to reapply for those. The wetlands can be extended.
Okay. All tied into each other. So we did have, just, for the record, we did have a conversation regarding this application during our last meeting. And to Valerie's point, I think that the threshold that we were looking at was that nothing has changed with the project, nothing has changed, with regard to code or law that would impact the approvals that were previously made. So just could be, the applicant, if you have anything to add right now.
No, absolutely.
Okay, so just in terms of, first of all, board members, I know that, we spoke about this last time. So are there any kind of questions or comments before we kind of move this process forward?
No, we flushed this one out. For me, I'm good. Lana?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
had a question because I wasn't here last time.
Sure.
But from when we last looked at it, I had issues with it, particularly on the wetlands. So with the number of trees coming out and the encroachment on the wetlands.
Okay. Noted. And all right, so I believe we'd opened up a public hearing on this last month. We have a motion to reopen the public hearing.
Bobby Bauer making a motion to reopen the public hearing.
Michael Aronson, second.
Okay. Any objections? No objections. Is there anybody here in the room tonight to speak to the application? I don't see any hands. And if there's anybody on Zoom who would like to speak to this application tonight, you can use the hand raise function. And I do not see any hands. We haven't received any new information. Okay, any new correspondence. Okay. I'm actually gonna have so I'd like the motion to close the public hearing here. I think at this point. So we'll start with that.
Michael Aronson, motion to close the public hearing.
Nina Aaron, second motion.
Any objections? All right, no objections. So the public hearing is closed. So, you know, I think based on what we've discussed, what we've been given from staff, and the fact that this was approved, nothing has changed. You know, we kind of discussed those thresholds, and we looked at the project again last meeting in much more detail than we did tonight. This is a follow-up. All of the notifications have gone out both to the county as well as to the village of Briarcliff. We've not heard anything back in terms of that. You know,
Not from the village, no.
Okay. Then I think with that in mind, we can do a single vote. So this vote that, you know, just, again, we just said this a moment ago, just clear though, is looking at extending or reapproving the final subdivision and final site plan and extending the wetlands approvals. And what's the extension of the wetlands approval? Let's just make sure we're being clear with
One year.
Yeah, I think it's 1 year.
that's the maximum.
Yes.
So they have 1 year to get the building permit.
We'll probably be back here in 90 days if we can't get the subdivision plan filed between now and then, because the village has a 90-day timeline. So, yeah.
And is that, and sorry, and just for the extensions though, is this the first of a kind of a fixed string of extensions, or is there, is that,
Wetlands,
yeah,
The wetlands, I don't believe has a set number of extensions.
right.
I think that's.
You have extended it previously. This is the
This is
second.
the second time.
okay,
The other
Or no,
application,
This one actually be a first.
I think this is
the first on the wetland.
Yeah.
The issue is that your code on subdivision and site plan, limit how many extensions you can get.
right.
On wetlands, it doesn't.
So they're kind of along the same path. One's being extended, the other has to be reapproved just based on
The other two.
the other two. Okay,
Is there any secret action that needs to be taken before?
Yeah, they have to confirm and everything.
Wait, what?
Did we do that last time?
Yeah, yes, you're gonna wanna reconfirm the negative declaration.
On the basis that nothing has changed.
okay. So I guess, and actually that's the first in the order of the actions that we would be taking. So I think we can do this as a single vote. But we would be initially reconfirming the negative declaration, reapproving the final subdivision, reapproving the final site plan, and extending for 1 year the wetlands approval. So we have a motion to approve, for a resolution to approve those items in that order.
Eric Talbot, I make the motion to I have it, to reaffirm the negative declaration, to reapprove the final site plan, reapprove the final subdivision, and I think extend the extension of the wetlands for approvals.
Right, and a second,
Bobby Bowder, I second.
that's much easier. And we'll do a roll call.
Michael Aronson. Aye. Nina Aaron.
No,
Carla Elliott. Aye. Robert Bowker.
Aye.
Eric Talbot.
Aye.
Brenda Burback. Aye. Chair Roy.
Aye. All right, so the motion carries 6-1.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. We are now going to move on to Campwood 19, sorry, item D on our agenda. This is 19 Campwood Road, planning board 06-2023. So sorry, let's open up my notes here. So again, we're going to bring up, I think maybe will come up before you give your update on the project. If we can just have it's kind of a high level update from
Sure.
Valerie.
So from this application is seeking site plans, conditional use, and Board of Architectural Review approvals. At the last meeting, the board acknowledged that this is an unlisted action and that you did declare your intent to be lead agency. And so tonight you can issue or actually officially declare yourself to be lead agency. The county referral was conducted and a response was received from the county on March 31st. I believe the board received copies of that. And so we're just recommending that the applicant should respond to the county's comments. That's pretty much where you are now. The applicant will require approval from ZBA. So ultimately, this board will need to refer this over to the ZBA as well.
Okay.
You did have a new memo with some comments. didn't you?
Yeah, but I think we're just, yeah, I mean, I think, are you talking about our just general planning? Yes, yes, but I think you were gonna get into that.
Yeah, so right, so we do have a new memo, I think really from both.
Yeah, from both, yeah.
Yeah, from Nelson Pope as well as from Tony's firm. So I think I'll give you just you know in like 1 to 2 minutes, and what you've done, what's changed on the application since you were here last time, and then we'll have probably a few questions for you.
Perfect. Well, we haven't submitted new architectural plans, a new site plan, but we do have, I think, one of the submittals was hopefully it's all clear with the easement issue. I think the council of Porky has submitted a package.
Yeah, and I reviewed the easement, and it is a problem that you have the dumpsters located within the easement area. So those do need to be moved. The easement is for ingress and egress only.
Yeah. And I think then the next step, I think, is going to be addressing the 2 memos and going to zoning board of appeals.
Right, so yeah, and kind of looking at this right now, I mean, there's a lot to go through in both of those memos. There's before we can really start our secret, a more in-depth secret evaluation. There's obviously a lot more information we need on short form and to flesh that out. So I'm not even really sure what we can discuss in this meeting here tonight. So I think from that end, as far as from staff's level, as far as variances, are we clear enough at this point to make a clear referral on what ZBA variances we're looking at?
Well, I think in terms of the actual variances, at least from my perspective, it's clear on the variances that are necessary, but it's up to the applicant. I mean, it's up to this board whether you feel comfortable. And I don't know if there's any additional information you need in order to determine, something to tweak a variance requested.
I don't think any of our items, sir.
And of course, the zoning board won't be able to actually approve the variances until you complete secret.
Right. So this would, this would be a and can we just kind of go through that list right now, the current lists?
So I didn't provide, you mean in terms of part 2? I did not provide.
No, not part 2, just on the variances.
The variances, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It was like,
I want to stay on the variances.
I was gonna say, I can have a part 2 for next. meeting.
Yeah, no, we're not at part 2 yet. I think we need more for that. So.
For the variances, I can run through them and then let me know. Okay. So the variances I have listed as maximum required building height. The applicant's proposing 41.2 feet as opposed to the 36-foot maximum. The maximum required impervious coverage is 80%. The applicant is proposing 87.11%. And then that all driveways, /upper loading docks must be at least 2 feet away from the property line in non-residential districts. They need a variance from that. And then they also need technically a reduction from the required parking. This isn't necessarily a variance, but this is a waiver that they're requesting from the board. But if the board doesn't want to provide them a waiver, then that would be clearly a variance. But they're proposing 15 total spaces while they're required 18 spaces, and they're asking for a reduction in parking. The planning board can provide that reduction.
Right.
Did you mention the side yard? I think there was a side yard concern, right? Because
I think
you're
that
going
was-
to another level.
I do not.
One other, sorry, was there one other that Tony, that we should be?
And you want to pull up the side.
I do not have any others listed. I don't know if
I
there's,
think
I think the 2 feet away is the one that we're referring, that you're maybe.
No.
I was concerned with, I think if this is correct, sorry, I didn't bring it up.
side yard variance as well.
Your side yard, because you're going
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
floor and you're.
Because it's
not
already
conforming.
non-conforming
Yeah,
and
I
it's
think-
going up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I thought of that, because that was
I
something.
think, is Joe's referral letter.
Yeah.
On there, maybe just pull that up. That should help.
Scroll down.
Oh, no, he just has it just more
No, keep on, is
generalized.
it on this? There it is.
Okay.
Yeah, impervious surface, maximum front yard setback, building height, parking, aisle width, and the setback for the parking.
Yeah, I think there's something with the aisle width, though, that they have provided some additional information since then on the aisle width.
That's what the island with was open.
Well, that was related to the, was that related to the easement?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, you said it has 18 and you
Right.
said, what was, that was the driveway width, not the aisle width.
Right. And I think that we established that because it's less than 20 parking spaces.
Yes.
But was that, could you go back to the site plan again for a second?
So I think,
Sorry.
I think one of the things that Joe brought up in his referral letter, I believe, was addressed by the applicant, if I. With dealing with the parking width.
No, it's that, it's the aisle. It's not that, it's,
Two parking
Yeah.
spaces, that has to be a certain distance.
that's, well, that is, that's.
Yeah.
for-
Yeah, 24, yeah, I thought I think
Yeah,
it was
we
an
did-
original, an
Yeah.
earlier version
Yes.
that it didn't meet, and then I think.
And then the distance, I think, was off of that property.
Right.
After that, and then again, the
Okay.
side yard, because you're putting.
So the aisle width complies, but you've got to find another place for your dumpsters.
So, but that little, that little extension of the parking lot up closer to the lot line, that's the request for the driveway.
The 2
setback.
foot,
Yeah.
that's the,
So it's for
yeah,
that section.
And
And then
also the way.
the side yard is for the full side yard of the building, which,
I think it was
Yeah,
front.
Yes.
yeah, the
It's
side
front
yard.
yard. It's done.
can we scroll, yeah, towards,
It's
So-
the front yard is non-conforming.
Okay, and
Got
then
it.
going up there for, yeah.
got it.
The other thing was the buffer too. I don't know if you noticed the landscape
Landscape
buffer, you're
buffer.
within that 10 feet.
Right, so as far as, what's being presented, I think the one that I have a little bit of a question with is the impervious, because, what are we adding? Can we just kind of look at that, see what we're,
We actually reduced in the.
so is the request different from what it was listed at before? If we were looking at 87 versus 81.
Yeah, but it's at 97 right now.
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
reduction.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
It's still over.
Yeah,
Still over, but they're making improvement. And it's, the question is it at a place where we feel like we should drill, is the site plan at a place where it makes sense to refer this to ZBA and have them take a look at it versus making more site plan changes?
So my question is, you move those dumpsters, you're gonna lose parking. So now you have an extra, you'd have more of a variance on parking. So I would like to see that. Where the dumpsters are gonna go.
The dumpsters, we now lose in the parking space because we're gonna put them
Where are you gonna
Where are
put?
you gonna put them?
back to back. They go in line back to back.
Back.
And then
Not,
we-
not in the easement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, is
Yeah, let's go.
that? Yeah, let's,
You do have, if you turn that,
You,
you will have room there. I think we already have a new drawing, but we haven't submitted. Yeah.
I mean, as far, if it's ingress and egress, would that include ingress and egress for trash removal? If those are rotated,
Actually, what's going on right now, I believe that both, like, all the garbage containers are together for both property there. So we're gonna establish within, we're not losing the parking, but we're gonna establish our own garbage collection there.
you understand, yeah.
so those are existing dumpsters
Yes.
and one
Not
for each.
located like that, but the ones, if you see pictures.
Right, you could also do an agreement with the adjacent property owner to
Right.
amend the easement to allow the dumpsters to stay there. If they're being used by both,
The two dumpsters that you're showing, are those representing one for each property, or those?
and is that gonna be enough when you add the additional? Do you need additional dumpster for the additional units?
And you're also gonna need.
I have to establish,
Recycling,
Recycling,
right, we'll also establish what
to recycling.
our garbage is being picked up, if there's gonna be.
You want also maneuvering on that site though for the garbage truck.
yeah,
that's one of our concerns.
So these are all, I think, really important and critical site plan questions to raise. I think as far as the ZB, which we're very early on in that phase.
Well, in order to move the application, if the board, I mean, that's the one item I would like to see, because our application now will, when not in May and June or for the CBA, then we'll be back.
Well, your ZBA, we'll talk now about making a ZBA referral, but to be clear, because this is an unlisted action, ZBA can't make any determinations on
Right,
it
that's
until
what
after
I want to
we
start the.
make a declaration. So I think the only other question then becomes the reduction in parking, if that's part of our referral. And I guess if we refer it as, once it's referred, can we amend the referral down the road if we feel it becomes necessary?
Well, the
That's the
board,
question.
the thing, right, so the planning board could decide to just deal with the parking yourself. And,
Right, but that's not a parking waiver, right? That's a different.
it's a reduction of parking that they're requesting. So the section of the code they're requesting says when any lot containing two or more. All right, any lot, contains two or more uses having different parking requirements. The parking requirements for each use shall apply to the full extent, where it can be conclusively demonstrated that one or more such uses will be generating a demand for parking spaces primarily during periods when the other use or uses is not in operation. The planning board may reduce the parking spaces required up to 100% of the parking spaces required for that use, the police requirement.
Right, like be it a breakfast restaurant
Right.
and then a bar, and their hours of operation were vastly different, right? That would be consideration.
Or even like a retail that's really only primary use during the day and residential that's primarily.
Right.
One of the
at night.
retail, one of the retails upstairs in the main floor is that, like an upholstery.
It's
Uh,
vacant.
Yeah.
Right.
Vacant
It's
or-
vacant, there's nothing there.
Oh, that was.
Right, but it's,
Upholstery left.
but it's also, I mean, these are commercial, there's a lot of different, we would have to understand in order to approve that, what are all the different, non-conditional as of right uses of those spaces, because it may be,
Right.
a laundromat today, but in a year from now, it'll be a restaurant, and those all have very different hours of operation. So I don't know that sitting here, we have the information that we can say that we can or can't. I don't mind making a referral and leaving that out, but then there's a risk of, in the future, we would have to add that in, and that can slow down the process.
I think I would like to start that process.
I mean, I don't have an objection to that.
So you're saying we're basically making a referral to CBA without really knowing what the parking demand or need is going to be at this point, but we can revisit it.
Right. Effectively, the applicant is not requesting a variance on the parking, understanding that one may be needed based on how this lands. I think that's how I would look at it. Okay.
I think that should be okay because they'll be in front of the zoning board, but this board has to make a secret determination. So hopefully by the time you make the secret determination, you'll have a better sense of what's going on with the parking. And then therefore, if there needs to be an additional referral, when he finishes up with the zoning board, it can be done at that point in time.
And I think from your end, understanding, what are the uses, what uses may come into that space in the future, because without that being, very clearly listed, and, there's a tabular analysis that shows how many spots you need for this use versus residential, and, some sort of like a Venn diagram.
We can provide that.
yeah. Okay, all right, just to keep things moving forward, I realize we're doing okay, but, we opened a public hearing on this last time we were here. Can I have a motion to reopen the public hearing?
Making a motion to reopen to public hearing.
Hurts how bad, second motion.
Any objections? No objections? Is there anybody here from the public to speak to this application tonight? Do not see any hands. Is there anybody on Zoom to speak to this application tonight? You can use the hand raise function on Zoom, and I do not see any hands. And Maddie, do we see anybody from the public? We did not, electronically. So, all right. So, I think at this point, we could have a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Michael Aronson, motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Bobby Backrack, second motion.
Any objections? No objections. The public hearing is adjourned. So, based on that conversation, I think it makes sense at this point to make a referral to ZBA, understanding that they can't make any determinations until we have a secret determination. And that would be on the list of maximums, the maximum height, the impervious coverage, the property line, the property line setback with the driveway, the front yard, and that's it. We're not going to touch the parking. Is that perfect? Is that
Right, except for the 2 feet from parking lot.
That's,
Yeah, that-
that's the parking lot property line. Sorry, yeah. Okay, we have a motion then, to make the referral to ZBA.
Nina Aaron, motion to refer to ZBA.
And, actually, all right, can we have a second
Michael Aronson, second.
and a roll call?
Michael Aronson,
Aye.
Nina Aaron, Carla Elliott, Robert Bowker, Eric Talbot, Brenda Burback, and Kira Roy.
Aye, all right, so that carries 7-0. And I think I noticed there was a comment, that we declared our intent to be lead agency last go around.
Right.
So should we have a separate vote to declare lead agency, because everybody's been notified and nobody has objected, okay. So can I have a motion to declare lead agency?
Bobby Bowker make a motion to declare lead agency.
Michael Aronson, second the motion.
And, I guess we'll do another roll call.
Michael Aronson,
Aye.
Nina Aaron, Carla Elliott, Robert Bowker,
Aye.
Eric Talbot,
Aye.
Brenda Burback, Chair Roy.
Aye, all right, motion carries 7 ties, all right. So, I guess now can we have a motion to adjourn this item? Sorry, guys.
Nina
Trying to
Aaron.
cover bases here.
We second the motion.
Any objections? No objections. Motion carries. So this is adjourned. All right. Thank you very much. All right. And you're not going to you're actually not going to bar.
I never, because I hadn't passed one.
It's quite real that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So next up on the agenda is planning board 07/2023 BAR 03/2023. This is for 14 Church Street. And if we can actually if we can just get an overview, please, Valerie.
So I'll just roll their status
Yeah,
in terms of
status
the
update.
process. So this application is here for site plan, conditional use, and Board of Architectural Review. This application is an unlisted action, and because it's within the LWRP, it does require EAF recommendation. The environmental advisory, EAC recommendation, the Environmental Advisory Council is still waiting for appearance from the applicant at his BAC meeting in order to give that recommendation. There was a notification made to the Westchester County, which was required. No responses were received from the county, but that's all right. They basically said they weren't going to provide a response, and so no further action is required for that. And that's where we are.
Okay. So really at this point with what we have in front of us. Well, I guess there were a couple of new things that were presented, right, which we can take a look at.
Right, the construction.
Yeah, there's a construction plan, I believe, some renderings and drawings, or,
And also.
EAR representation.
Chair Roy, if I could just interrupt
Yeah.
for the record, Carla Elliott has recused herself from this conversation.
Okay, very good. Sorry. Thank you. Ed. Thank you for noting that. Okay, so can we, maybe let's just put some of the new drawings up there. I don't, again, because there's a lot pending, there's a whole, secret review that we need to do on this project. I think we can get some feedback on anything that was new, just to make sure if you're continuing to develop the project, you're developing it in concert with any feedback from here. So,
Well, we did have S1, we submitted a logistic plan. How we plan it, and we get comments from the
from color sessions.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need to coordinate that with
The DPW.
DPW.
Yeah, I need permits for taking spaces and stuff.
Taking away a couple parking spaces.
We also show the where the garbage is going to be in the back. There's also, we will show next time around, there's a way to, if the garbage is being run out, brought to the front of the building. So there's actually a hallway where somebody working for the landlord will, move the garbage in the garbage pickup day.
Where,
We'll
I'm
bring-
sorry, where's the garbage?
Right now it's in the rear of the building.
That little.
Here,
Yeah.
here.
Oh, again.
It says dumpsters.
It's.
No.
That's a construction logistics plan. This is not this.
Oh,
No, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's what they need to talk to DPW about. to get a
Right.
Permit for it.
So was that on the site plan? Or is that? Like, it's like,
Actually, the
Now,
result,
in the first one.
it will show an example, didn't make it to the site.
okay,
And then.
and we talked about re-rendering these a little bit.
Yeah, and we have, what we did, we started with doing the work and we did some massing models to show how that compares. We have some 3D views showing the bit of the massing.
Okay. Here's one.
And there's another one from the other one.
And what's, just looking at this, because I mean, these are certainly helpful just to get a sense of volume and space. What's materially though? I'm still not sure that.
We will provide you, I mean, right now, it's just, we have material listed, but we haven't fully decided the material, so.
Have you finalized it yet?
No.
Okay.
Right, because right now, the bottom, the existing building is sort of that yellow stucco color, and this looks like, I don't know, red brick or haven't decided, is what you're saying.
It's actually is brick, but it's a yellowish brick.
Oh, what it's the
Yeah.
existing, yeah, concrete or brick or whatever.
I would just be, I would just be mindful as you develop these, I mean, the material at the ground is, whether that's the restored masonry or that, that's less of an issue, but what you're putting on top of it, it doesn't seem to have any contact right now at all, or relationship.
Right.
And I think you need to really put some thought and time into.
That's when we are having
Developing
a discussion budget wise and working material. It will be useful to have that.
Yeah, I just want to, so when I was looking at the site plans for 2 Church Street, I kept flipping back and forth to, the perspective from that building to this across the parking lot. And so I just sort of want to say, I do feel like the architectural designs need a lot
Yes.
more nuance and detail and context.
That's why, we started with the mass model and like I said, we haven't defined the finished materials yet.
I mean, that upper photo, I think, is a really important one. You're right next to Lucy's, this beautiful ornate, decorative stone building. And it's just like, yeah. It's very abrupt. It doesn't mean it needs to be ornate in the same way
Right.
at all, but it needs to relate, and it doesn't.
It's too important a part of the downtown facade to just. At least from my perspective.
It's almost an opportunity to take this brick box that was, I think, very abruptly put next to that building
Real improvement.
and improve it.
Yeah.
And I certainly don't want.
Good opportunity.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so I think you've got your lists from,
Right, is there questions about the memo about the parking waivers?
so. I would like to spend, when we talk about that in a group here, I feel like there may be an opportunity to talk internally about that a little bit more as well. That's something we can talk about, maybe having a secondary conversation about how that fits in with this project. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts or comments here right now, which you're free to share, but I don't know that I'm ready to have a fuller conversation on that right now. Yeah, I think it's something that we need to talk about a little bit more internally, and then we'll bring that up more when we finalize the site plan. I realize that it's an important conversation, to how your plan moves forward.
Yeah.
Understood. Okay. Yeah.
Just on the parking
Yeah.
waiver. My feeling is because this is in the downtown and we're trying to make something that is walkable and usable, I have no issue with a parking waiver.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's,
You're always gonna run into this battle when you're developing downtown. It's not gonna be adequate parking anywhere. And we just have to get past that. I think sometimes you want to develop where projects.
yeah, I see
Especially
a lot of
transit oriented
noted.
developments, right? That's what we want to do. TODs.
Yeah. I think those are important perspectives as you're
Yep.
planning your thought. I think, those are two or three opinions, so three heads bobbing as they were talking. So, but I think just, from the detail of it, I'd like to take a little bit of a deeper dive in that. But I'm not sure right now from the way. So I just procedurally again, just to take a step back.
I'm sorry, Stephanie, but
It's okay.
if you have, so then if the board has any additional material of the parking waiver, then we will be.
I think at this point, it has less to do with the materials that you presented and just our interpretation and understanding of yeah. So,
Legal, okay.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that the facts and how it's been presented are clear and helpful. So
Okay.
from that end, I think that you presented, I think, a helpful document. We're comparing that to, what the village kind of authorizes us or instructs us to do. And so that's the conversation that we have to just clarify. All right. All right. So really quickly though, so we did open a public hearing on this. Can we have a motion to reopen the public hearing?
Michael Aaronson, motion to reopen the public hearing.
Second.
Or Talbot, I second the motion.
All right, any objections? No objections, we're now in a public hearing. Is there anybody here from the public? who can speak with that, please?
Yeah, he's got the parking.
You not seeing the hand. Is there anybody on Zoom? You can use the hand raise function on Zoom if you'd like to speak to this application. And I do not see any hands raised, and we did not receive anything electronically via email to the village. So can we have a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
I'll be back to make a motion for drawing public hearing.
Nina Aaron, second motion.
Any objections? No objections, the motion carries, the public hearing is adjourned. So we will, so I think when we see you back, we're, big things that we'll be looking for is the short form issues, the EAC, having a recommendation from the EAC, which requires some input from your end first to get to that point. And I think then we can have maybe a more informed conversation about where we are with
Right,
this.
and I think maybe also having them respond to our memo, Tony's memo, and then also the county's comment.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry.
The county did not say,
that was the other.
Okay. Okay, so that's great. And okay, so we have a motion to adjourn this item.
And I don't know if this, the board declared itself lead agency last time, so.
Did we declare intent?
There are no involved it doesn't need to have a coordinated review.
Okay.
So do they really need to declare? No.
No,
Okay.
they're the only.
Okay. All right, then can we have a motion to adjourn the item for tonight?
Nina Aaron, motion to adjourn.
Talbot, I second the motion. Sorry.
Any objections? No objections, items adjourned. All right, so thank you. Okay. We are now up to Church Street. So again, Valerie, I think, if this returning, if you can give us just a status update, where we are now. And then we'll hand it over to the applicant.
So I'll speak to where we are and then just in terms of, so I think we're getting close to the end of this application. So then I'll turn it over to Tony to see if there's anything outstanding, especially since we're getting so close to the end. But this particular application is seeking site plan and board of action review and a parking waiver to finish their interior renovations as well as build a couple of minor additions. So this was a type 2 action, so there was no other additional requirements from the board. This did require notification from Westchester County. That was completed in February 2023. There was no comments back from Westchester County. In terms of the ZBA, they received their ZBA variances in February. And also in terms of the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. So the applicant was required to contact the State Historic Preservation Office. We worked with them. There was a no effects letter from the State Historic Preservation Office, which basically said that their proposed project would have no adverse impact to the historic resources. So the next step in the process is for the village to work out an agreement with the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. That is still ongoing. So if the board was to consider any sort of approval, I would just recommend that this would be a condition of approval. And then in terms of the planning questions, they actually addressed all our questions. So we have no other outstanding items, at least from our end.
Okay, Tony?
Our end was logistics again, showing how we're accessing what spaces you might possibly need. That was just a big item.
Okay.
And the agreements with working within the aqueduct.
Right, so that ties into what Valerie was talking about in
Correct.
terms of, I guess it's not so much the no effects letter, because that's just, the no effects letter deals with the,
Historic reason.
right, and the whatever, the physical intervention onto that space, which is part of the park, versus the village agreement with the Parks Department. And so that would have to incorporate whatever logistical requirements would be needed in order to execute the work, and then clean it up and be done at the end of it. Is there, what else is, just, I think, to be clear, the no effect letter makes a lot of sense and is understandable. We discussed it, but just what else would be involved in that agreement between the village and the Parks Department?
So I believe the village is actually preparing preparing an agreement for not only for like their. Do you want to speak to this because you're a little bit more privy?
Just a tad. So my impression is that the agreement is going to entail basically an extension and expansion of what the current responsibilities are. So, sort of expanding the maintenance, is that we're talking about this just before.
Yes, we.
Hold on, one moment. Yeah. Pavers and landscaping are in need of significant repair and maintenance. Some ongoing agreement for the repairs and ongoing maintenance if possible. And I think the hope is that perhaps Open Door could assist us with some of those things as part of the site plan agreement. So again, this is pavers, landscaping, and then perhaps inclusion of an agreement for ongoing maintenance and repairs.
Got it. And so that's the component of that agreement. I just want to be clear. I mean, the logistical part that we talked that Tony mentioned, but also that maintenance component is what we are discussing as being a potential condition of a site plan.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. I know we're sitting here talking about the project. I'd like to just give you an opportunity to update us from your perspective. And obviously we can answer questions, so we can answer questions.
Very well, thank you. Jerry Tortorella, Ackerman, Tortorella, and Wexstein. I just want to introduce who's with us this evening. We have Lindsay Farrell and Michelle Noe from Open Door. Chuck Utchick is in the room, and we have Mike Tucker. They're both from Langen. And then we have our architects here this evening, Robert Masters and John Reed from Cannon Design. And I'm anticipating that would be the focus of our presentation tonight, because we have augmented the previous materials, and I know the board wanted us to come back and discuss that. We have completed, procedurally, I think we're in good shape in terms of complying with things. I don't think there's any issue about whether we'll be able to do the work in the aqueduct, it's just a matter of how we're going to go about doing it. We're cognizant of the need to have the staging and the phasing discussed and have it kind of reduced to an understandable plan. So we're aware of that. And Open Door has no objection to, being responsible on an employee basis for the maintenance. And we anticipated that would be a requirement, so.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so I don't need to keep the floor. If I can turn it over to the architect when you're ready, I really think that they're the focus of tonight.
Now's the time. That'd be great.
Great. So John, John Reed, going to do the full presentation. But of course, Rob Masters is here to answer
I'm
questions.
gonna be my assistant. We're two people out at the moment. So I'm supposed to also inform you that I'm not only a New York architect, I'm a neighbor of yours. I live in Katona. I've lived there for about 20 years. I drove past my rowboat in the Croton Reservoir on the way here. So it's a beautiful town. I'm very familiar with this place. Let's look at the first photograph. The thing that we were struck by when we visited this site was that this building sits in a room in your city. And it's a room where all kinds of interesting things happen, where this path, this aqueduct crosses. There's a beautiful piece of sculpture. There is a church that's just off to the left, top left there. And there's a number of sort of activities and things happening in that area. The building as it exists today is sort of recessive on the street. There is a paved plaza set back from the street and a small door that is off of that plaza. All right, there's two more pictures down below that give you a little bit more context. So the bottom one is a street view looking up towards that plaza I just mentioned. You can see the neighboring building and the aqueduct moving in the distance. And then again, another sort of aerial view looking down into the space. So keep those images in your mind's eye. Let's go one more. This is the proposed addition. What we wanted to do was to engage not only this room, but to engage the aqueduct, to make a set of steps that have benches, that have lighting incorporated into these benches, a place for somebody to pause that is walking on the aqueduct. There could be activities or events that could take place on those stairs. We wanted to make a sort of a porch to look out into the room. The entrance to the building is just sort of up the hill from the corner prow of those stairs. On the left, there's a small little retaining wall to allow ADA access into the corner. The idea was to make a space that was welcoming and open and glassy. You can see a stair is rising up to the second story. On the outside of the building, we have some wooden fins. That was to provide a little bit of shade, but also to provide a bit of sort of warmth to the architecture. The existing building is a white, sort of framed mid-century, stucco building. And we thought to put something on the corner that related not only to the benches, but just was more welcoming than the original building. We have some signage maybe incorporated into that. There's a small series of dots that are put into the wood fins to show that signage. Let's go one more. So then we have the elevations just to put the building into the scale of the street. You can see how the site cascades. You can see on the upper left in that first elevation, this is the Church Street elevation. You can see the previous teller window that is going to be a drop off, really the main drop off for the building when people are parking in the parking lot. You can see the cascading landscape and then our new addition there on the corner. The drawing on the bottom, we didn't spend much time on. That's really the back of the building. You should note that there is a small garden there that we're enclosing with a fence. When we get to the site plan, I'll show you how one of the paths there has been reconfigured a little bit to give that area a little bit more privacy. All right, keep going, please. I'm so used to controlling the drawings myself.
No, it's also.
And I'm also used to pointing. All right, so this is the parking lot elevation facing the last project that we just looked at. The changes here are really just changing the color of an awning on the left there to a darker color and adding a little addition to accommodate the entry into the space where the teller window previously was. The drawing on the bottom is the elevation as you would see it from the aqueduct. We need to work a little bit more maybe on some of the landscaping there, but the intent is to bring the landscape back into that area after the construction. Then we have one last, here's the site plan. The site plan identifies those three spots. Scroll up just a bit further, please. You can see the corner on the bottom left, which are the flight of stairs and the podium for the new entry pavilion. To the right, you can see that little garden space that we've incorporated into a fenced area. And then the path that used to sort of jog across going down to the aqueduct is now just a straight line that runs up the backside of the property. And then the small little addition where the drop off previously was at or our new drop off where the teller window previously was for the bank. Okay. And then our last view is just a close up, just to give you a sense of the scale of the building. We didn't have materials in our slides. We brought the materials to show you. I don't know, can I cross this line? You can. All right, so essentially, we're matching the mullion color of the original building. So we want to be consistent with that. The steps would be a precast and gray. You can see in this view that there's a lot of different materials happening on the ground plane there. And so we selected the most neutral one that we thought would relate and weather well. This is the color of the stucco walls to either side. We're just matching the stucco that's there. This is our fins. It's obviously not a real wood. It's sort of wood encapsulated in a more durable material. By putting little dots in it, we would get that signage effect. The open door symbol, which we really love.
Is it a metal, a veneered metal, or
no? It's a composite panel.
Yeah, it's phenolic center core.
And then our glass, because we're required to really make sure that the birds don't hit our glass. The glass has a foot pattern like this so that the birds can see it and not strike the windows. I can pass these around or whatever.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what we wanted to show you.
I would just add a little bit, just, and I think we spoke about this previously in introducing the project. The goal of the entrance is really to engage the main street and as Church Street and Main branch right there at the aqueduct, but also to reach across the street and re-engage 165 Main across the street and really create a dialogue between Open Doors' two facilities in the downtown and create a real center for community wellness, which this really becomes the focal point for that access to care that Open Door provides so effectively. We also, John talked a lot about that activation of the corner and the aqueduct really being engaged and enlivened by this addition. And I think the movement within the building, the stair that this lantern captures, gives the opportunity to kind of bring that activity that's central to the downtown inside the building as well, connecting the waiting spaces that are on the first and second levels. So engaging our entry here on Church Street, but also the entrance in from the parking lot. So it really becomes a real catalyst for all the movement inside the building and outside the building.
You mentioned a minute ago just the landscaping, which I guess is mostly that southern, I guess, that western portion of the facade between the staircase and then that kind of back entrance. But is there work that you're planning to do there? I mean, just remind us how that's changing from what's currently there, I guess.
I mean, we plan to leave that in kind and repair the area where we had the addition here in the corner. So most of that remains.
Okay.
There's a few things that have to go away. There's a few trees that we have to work around.
Yeah, I think in the rear of the site where we're
Yeah.
relocating the path, we want to bring that landscape berm all the way along and kind of maintain that green edge along the aqueduct.
That's our main patch.
Right. And you're not removing any trees to accomplish that?
No.
Maddie, can you go to the picture of the pad now? What it looks like? So you're really just enclosing that courtyard with like steel frame glass, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that one tree at the center, though, that tree is where your intervention is.
Yes.
Yeah, and the addition, in addition to creating that stair, it also provides vital updated ADA access. We are capturing a new elevator connecting the two floors in that entry as well.
It's, looking at this image, your rendering had like almost like a roofscape of several different bulkheads that are being added. Can you just speak briefly about what those are and how they'll read?
Sure. Go to the last drawing, please. This one's fine. Essentially, there's a number of mechanical units that are painted gray, and then there's an elevator bulkhead that's roughly 13 feet above the grade of the finished roof. So there's some things that will populate that, but we think that by painting them gray, they'll really begin to go away. Because the elevator hits the edge of the building, we left that in the same color as the stucco.
What kind of mechanism are you using to lift and pull the elevators? A pulley system? Like is it?
I'll check the spec, but I believe it's a holeless hydraulic that we're utilizing. So the overrun is just specific to the mechanism of the elevator. But given its two-story nature, I believe it's a holeless hydraulic. I will confirm.
And the reason is you don't want to put a big hole right next to the existing foundation. So that's why you see more in the
There is a condition at 270-28A in the zoning code. Just take a look at it, make sure you meet that condition. There are height exceptions, but the aggregate of all the bulkheads and stuff can't be more than 10% of the area of the roof.
Okay.
has this been looked at? Is that,
No, I
Okay.
think this is
Yeah,
the
we
first
just got
time,
noticed
right,
it.
this is the first time.
okay. As far as the mechanical spaces, those mechanical bulkheads, are those screens that are surrounding mechanical equipment? Or are those just boxes that are representing exposed condenser or chillers that are sitting up on the roof?
It's the enclosure that comes with the box.
Yeah,
It's-
that's the footprint of the equipment, but,
Okay.
but we do have the ability to select the panel
Yeah.
enclosure so that it's not just a, it's not just a, a painted aluminum box.
Yeah, it's,
Definitely want to see provided some screening around that. Part of that.
we're looking at this from the downhill side, which is probably
Yeah.
actually, as far as the roof is concerned, not the relevant one. You'll see it coming, coming down the hill. But they'll definitely, all of those roof structures will be very visible. And right now, there's really nothing up there. I think it would be important to understand how that's being concealed. I don't want to see a bunch of, air conditioners sitting up on the roof.
Big masses.
Yeah, sure.
And there's also some, and part of that text, there's also requirements for how far back they need to be set back. So I don't know if that one elevator shaft. is gonna be- So just take a look at that.
Sure. Other questions or comments from the board? I have to say, these are important comments that we're making, but by and large, I think this is, really beautiful and really nicely and thoughtfully designed. Kind of on all sides. I think it's.
Very expensive. Why not?
I know, I can only imagine. So I realize we sit here and we're kind of like asking kind of pointing questions, but I just wanted to take a step back out of that and just say, really nice. I think a real value to the community and to the village.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I think it is important that we get clarity on some of those items up at the top, as far as the, I guess that's a BAR / kind of code issue, right? Zoning issue as far as the items. I think we definitely need some clarification on that, both aesthetically and in terms of code compliance.
Screen both bulkheads too.
Yeah.
Real down on that.
As far as the site plan is concerned, I know we spent a lot of time looking at that. Are there any questions or comments on that? 'Cause I think that's.
I had a question, and I don't know if this came up again. Last time we talked about this, there was an issue of not having a loading dock. And how materials were gonna be delivered to the building or a delivery area in the rear, and you said stuff was gonna be just brought from the other building, which didn't really seem logistically good or possible. I mean, that's a lot of bringing stuff across the street to deliver goods to the much larger space.
So 2 clarifications on that. That is actually what happens for inventory control purposes. So that we have to have centrally delivered items. There are a lot of requirements just because of how Open Doors funded. So that is largely how it is done. But there's a substantial drive area, and I think I can't see at this distance, but I think it's about 22 feet, the drive aisle there. And this is one way. So in the event or in those instances where delivery will occur, there's plenty of room for a delivery truck to stop, a larger truck to stop, make the deliveries and cars still to get around. So we are not expecting a lot of deliveries, but there is sufficient area in the event there are deliveries. And clearly, we're gonna have delivery of equipment and things of that nature. I mean, that's not gonna be dropped off at 165 and carried across. I mean, that will come to the site. And we have the ability, because we control the entire building, we have the ability to control to some extent timing and, circumstances of the delivery. So.
Yeah, you can do deliveries before it's open in the morning.
The zoning board did grant a variance.
Okay.
Yes, they did.
For the loading space.
Okay.
They did. And there's none there, there's none there now. There's never been one with this help. So.
Right.
I just had
Yep.
a question too. I think you mentioned something about a landscaping plan, so you are gonna have a landscaping plan for what you're doing. I haven't seen one yet.
So, Langen has actually done the landscaping, is working on a landscaping plan, and do you have it? Yeah, no, it hasn't been completed yet. So it is something that Langen is going to be handling for us. I mean, we have a limited area of where we can landscape, so we're looking to optimize, maintain as much of the existing material as we have, and replace in kind where we can. But that will be something that we can submit, and hopefully that would be something that we could make a condition of the approval or something to that extent. Thank you.
Just wanted to clarify also regarding the rooftop equipment that the existing condition is a significant central mechanical unit on the roof. So we're in replacing that unit and addressing the medical facility requirements of the building. We're kind of splitting that into two modernized units. We can show some visual examples of that existing and proposed condition, particularly from the uphill side, although from a traffic flow perspective, Church Street is headed uphill, but clearly pedestrians and others would have a view. So we can have a look at that as well.
Yeah, I think that would be important. It was even, I mean, one of the reasons that I even pointed it out, it was important that you showed it very clearly in your drawings. That was helpful. I'm grateful for that, but it's also the existing condition photos. There's obviously some equipment out there, but it's very different. It looks very different now than what it appears you're proposing. So I think we definitely need clarity on that. So it sounds like we are going to need a little bit more of additional information before we can finalize our determination here. I think what I would like to do is go back to the public right now, reopen the public hearing as a first step. So can I have
Bobby Bowker making a motion to open public hearing, reopen public hearing.
All right, Calvin, I second the motion.
objections? No objection. So is there anybody here from the public to speak to the application? There's nobody here in the room. Is there anybody on Zoom? We can use the hand raise function. And it does not appear there's anybody on Zoom either. And we've not received anything. The village has not received any other emails or comments from the public. So we have a motion to adjourn the public hearing for now.
Michael Aronson, motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Mona Aaron, second motion.
Any objections? No objections. The motion carries. So the public hearing is adjourned. So I think we're kind of like right there at the finish line with this. Very close. So the clarifications on the roof, I think, are kind of an important last step. I think because we have the opportunity to just kind of a clearer landscaping plan that we can look at, just so we can kind of finalize our site plan review. If that can be provided for our next review. I think we dealt with the material delivery and there was the variance issue granted by the zoning board. So I think that's helpful. Starting off with the board, is there anything else that you guys want to see or that we need to see before we finalize our review on the project?
I just wondered about lighting, and I don't know whether I missed it because I wasn't in the previous meeting, but whether there's anything about that.
From an exterior perspective?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we did, I guess there's two aspects to that. I mean, first of all, the point of the glass box is that it really, when that space is active, and certainly in the winter time when we would have, we would have nighttime hours while the facility is open, we really want that to be kind of a glowing beacon for the facility. Off hours, the goal was to be a bit more strategic about the lighting. So we have an undersoffit light that at the perimeter where the first and second story separate. So it will provide a little bit of a glow down onto the steps, a little wash down onto the steps. Both the benches and the handrails that are integrated into the steps will have lighting. And then we have kind of almost a constellation type array in the ceiling of the two-story volume that would allow just a little bit of cascaded light onto the fins. So it's a very subtle kind of nighttime lighting scenario to provide for public safety and certainly illuminate the elements, but have a much different feel from when the center is open.
And then there's some lighting for the drop-off canopy as well. And again, there's existing lighting there, so that will be replaced and upgraded.
Are those reflected on either in the site plan or was there
I've got you with Langen Engineering. So the proposal is to keep the existing parking lot lighting that's there
Okay.
and only supplement where the new entryway is being proposed and they're removing the drive-through. So that'll be like a entry door light that'll occur there, but the rest of the parking lot will stay as lit.
Important question. Thanks, Anna. Okay, so staff, any other questions that we need to ask on this? I think we've been through it. I think we're, like I said, we're right there. Just a couple of pieces that we need to clarify, including the bulkhead height issue. You know, there's the VAR component of the enclosure, but also the bulkhead height in proximity to the edge. Okay, so I think we have a motion to adjourn this this to the next to our next meeting. Turn this item.
Bobby Falcon making a motion to adjourn.
Michael Aronson seconds.
Any objections? No objections. Motion carries. All right, so you guys are clear on everything?
We are. Can I ask a procedural question? So just because we're a little bit up against some scheduling on our own part, is it possible for a resolution to be started in anticipation of us concluding at the next meeting?
That's, I guess, part of a staff question, just in terms of,
I mean, we can do that if this board is comfortable with moving forward with a draft resolution. I mean, this is assuming that the bulkhead issue isn't going to need a zoning variance.
And I don't know if Joe's looked at it.
Right.
I mean, from our perspective, I think from site plan, from VAR, from, you know, from the items that are in front of us as a board, I think that I think understand where we are, and I don't think that there's any major wild cards.
Right. I mean, I can start drafting. I mean, I can have a draft resolution for site plan and then, you know, then you can decide on VAR and how you want to handle that. You know, I mean, I can have the draft resolutions ready, but then this board can decide how you want to handle each one.
Okay. That's fine.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with that.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And we understand it's conditioned on us providing the information you need and being satisfied with it. I mean, we recognize that, so. Very good. Thank you. very much.
Thank you guys very much. Great. Okay, so we are up to the final agenda of the evening. So this is item G, planning board 07/2022, PAR 05/2022. Stoughton Avenue, Riverwalk residences. So again, I think so, Valerie, for this one, if you can, and it's been a while since you've seen this group here. If we can just start off, Valerie, with a kind of a status update.
Right, yeah. So what I think I'd like to do, just because it's been a while, and I think what we spent some time doing, I think internally is I'm gonna say the team with Linda, Tony, myself, as well as Joe. We looked through the files and we wanted to make sure that we get this project moving forward procedurally, so that way this project can actually have a little bit more forward momentum. So in terms, this particular application is seeking site plan approval, VAR approval, and conditional use permit, wetlands permit, excavation and fill permit, pre-permit, and LWRP consistency. So this project is an unlisted action. And while this board has contemplated a part 1 and part 2 of the EAF, we have identified a number of some agencies that we think that they either need consultation or need to be part of the decision or coordinated review under seeker, such as the zoning board of appeals. And so we'd like this board to basically undertake another notice of intent to be lead agency. So we're just going to renotice this to make sure we cover all the involved, as well as interested agencies that potentially could have comments on the site plan that would tweak the site plan one way or the other. The other thing is this particular application does require referral to the zoning board of appeals, as well as the environmental advisory council, because it is in LWRP, and then there are clearly a number of zoning variances that are required. We did take a look since March, we undertook a review of the application for the zoning variances, so we feel fairly confident now the variances that we have identified are ones that are necessary. And then the other thing is this, while I identified in my memo that this required a county referral, there was one that was conducted previously and the applicant has provided to me. I'll circulate it to the board. So that at least we can check that in terms of process. But that's where we are with the process. And I had a lengthy memo in terms of some of the additional seeker stuff. And I know Keller Sessions has issued memos previously, and their comments still stand today. Yeah, so we'll go through, like, as we go through this, it's a more complicated project than this board normally does.
Yeah.
But we'll go through each one of the steps one at a time, but just in terms of procedure, we just kind of want to get that started. And then, if next month we want to talk about part 2 to see if there's anything else in terms of seeker that this board wants, we can do that. And then potentially if you're interested tonight and you're comfortable with the site plan, you could refer it over to the ZBA. If you want to look at the site plan a little bit longer in terms of the variances that are being requested, you can do that as well before your referral over to the ZBA.
Makes sense. Makes sense. You guys want to kind of give us anything new? I realize that Valerie just did a lot of.
No, absolutely. So as far as, for the record, my name is Daniel Patrick. I'm joined by Bob Stanziel, the project architect. We've got Jim Maurer on call. He is the project engineer, and we've got William DeVore. He's on behalf of the applicant himself. So, thank you guys for having us. Thank you for having us back. I know it has been a few months. We have been pretty busy behind the scenes. It's not that we've been sitting on our hands. As been indicated, this is kind of a complicated project. There's a lot of moving pieces. Largely what's been going on is engineering reviews and engineering reports. We have received the Keller Sessions memo previously, and we recently submitted an updated package, which included some responses to those comments, but there's still a number of things being worked on. Largely what was previously worked on over the past few months was the wetlands mitigation plan, utilities connections, all the fun stuff you think about site plan applications. But again, most of it's either is still in the process or continuing to be worked on. But as indicated, we are looking to go to the zoning board of appeals hopefully soon. We did receive the updated denial letter in March of this year. We have not submitted yet. We were hoping to be re-referred, but hopefully positively from this board. Before doing so, I think there was some clarification that we needed on a few of the items that were either there or not there. One in particular, which I discussed previously, was the density question. We are proposing 48 units.
Yeah, so I'll just, we had an internal conversation today, so you're good in terms of exceeding the 81 units per acre. But we still will need information for this board in terms of the amenities you're requesting and how that will get you up to the densities you're.
Perfect. We just wanted to make sure that we weren't getting too far into this before we even figured out if we can have the new read. So we'll work on
Linda checks with the 830 Water Street, and that was a recent application, and that the way you were interpreting was the way it was implied.
But you do, in the code, it says you get additional units for certain amenities.
Okay.
And so the board needs to go through, or you need to present to the board what those amenities are.
Yeah.
And the board has to agree that they're satisfied that what amenities get you the bonuses, get you up from the 6 to the 8.
Absolutely.
And then obviously the additional for the affordable housing.
Yep. Yeah, I think largely the support of our density bonus was, the open space being provided, because I forgot to, provide a brief update or brief background on the project, which you all are aware of, but it's 48 units. But really the backbone of it, the focal point is the increased access to the Carl Bucky Nature Preserve. It is the increased trail connectivity from the neighborhood to the existing trail system. The applicant is working on a very substantial trailway plan for that connection. There's a number of public amenities. There's the benches, the gazebos, the dedication of, I think, 3.19 acres of property for public open space. So there's a number of things that are, I think, meet the CDD, the underlying district's intent for the density bonus, but we can certainly put something more clearly in writing and submit to that.
Aside from that, there was one other question about the potential variances needed. This board has the ability to grant a waiver as it relates to the open area requirements for the spaces adjacent to the building. There's a minimum of one open space between the building and a lot line that needs to be 30% of the lot width. We are close to 30% both, but we are not 30% on either. So there is a provision that we read that we understand the board to have the authority to grant a waiver to allow us to have two open areas combined exceeding 30%. And, you know, if the board is not inclined to grant that waiver, I think that's something we need to seek area variance relief from. I think that was noted in the denial letter we received, but you know, before we start asking for things we might not need, we wanted to bring it up with this board and see if they'd be inclined to, you know, pursue that waiver authority, or if it's something we should seek relief from the zoning board for.
Can we get clarification on the code in terms of what our decision on, you know, on that would be based on?
Yeah, let me pull up that section. I just have to do it on my phone.
Having Wi-Fi problems.
Yeah.
I was having them on my phone.
It's a race, you can see, you can pull this up for me.
We're racing.
All right, so it says, it's meaty paragraph, building width and open area. The total cumulative width of building structure, solid fences and walls more than 36 inches in height shall not occupy more than 50% of the width of the parcel as measured along the substantially parallel line to the Hudson River. And the maximum building width for each structure or building shall not be more than 75 feet measured along a substantially parallel line to the Hudson River.
Can I pause you right there?
Yeah.
Because we do need a variance from that provision. We are aware of that. It's the second part of this that we are seeking the clarification for.
So then the next part is of the remaining open area, one uninterrupted space shall be at least 30% of such parcel width, unless the planning board approves more than one view corridor totaling 30%. Excluded are the existing Village of Austin designated historical buildings or any parcel or structure that is deemed by the planning board as irrelevant to preserving view corridors either to or from the Hudson River.
Right, and so it's related to view corridors of the river. That's the threshold. That's the
Right. And the authority that you have is if you're satisfied that there's, you know, several that total the 30% as opposed to
one single
Yeah.
30% opening of 30%. I believe we've actually looked at this on other projects. This has come up, I think, recently. So I think, yeah, we can kind of have a quick board conversation on that. I mean, we would need to see a little bit more in diagrammatically in terms of how this would impact, if that's something. So before we say it's
Yeah.
definitely
We have submitted some photo sims that kind of show the view from the roadway. Right now, there's really no view of the river itself as it is. With the proposed development, it's pretty low set down. There's gonna be a lot of trees being planted as well. I don't think it's gonna be, we're not taking away any view really. There's no view there now. We're proposing development. There's really not gonna be a view there anyway, because they're grade wise, it's not really.
if that's like a point of view photo diagram that shows what you're looking at with rendering and where those obstructions are. I think from my perspective, I'm willing to look at that as a potential waiver in this context, knowing what I know, but I also, if anybody on the board has a different opinion, that's also great. But
There is a diagram you did provide at some point, which was like dated in September 2022. But just make sure if you're going to resubmit that as the visual image, that it's not clear if that rendering depicts like trees that are existing or proposed, because they look a lot like they just didn't.
Yeah, we did like two different ones, one with trees superimposed, one without them superimposed, because we wanted you to be able to see the building too. But we can clarify that and make it a little more updated, but, I think, we weren't certainly asking for the approval tonight of that aspect, just that the board would be willing to consider it, so we don't go over asking for them, the zoning. board.
Right, that's all, that's I think all we're talking about right now is just whether or not that's a ZBA included or ZBA. Sorry, I'm just looking at that one here. Okay, so. All right, do you want, I know you were kind of running down your list of.
No, that was,
or-
those were our big kind of clarifications that we were looking for, because we were, we have the denial from the building department. It's, we have 60 days under state law to appeal that to the zoning board. Hopefully it won't be an issue, but, that 60 days runs up by the end of this week. So we'd like to make it within that 60 days, otherwise we'd have to ask for a new denial.
Okay, I mean, can we put the site plan up there and just maybe talk quickly about the variances? It is a big list. I think that's one of the bigger questions right now before us is CBA referral, or and I guess the reason we wouldn't make it a referral is if we feel like there are still substantive changes to make to the site plan or design of the project that would make that referral process or the ZBA review process, not relevant.
Yeah, you might do better with the architectural site plans. They're not as big.
Well, don't stop me now.
Oh, it's gonna get,
All right. All right, I mean, so the again, so I'm just gonna read through what we're looking at as far as variances being requested is from my understanding, or it's from the memo. So building height. So that was a 48 feet max, and they're proposing to it at 5910.
Yes.
We have the building width, which is a that's actually, is this the viewport?
Yeah, that's part of
That's the viewport. So that's
viewport.
that's not necessarily a variance that we're talking about
The
here.
building with that one it's
The
the
first part, got it.
minimum, right?
Yeah, okay, got it. And that is related to that's related to this district and the viewport rule though as well. It's the same spirit as the other one that we discussed. Minimum open area.
That one we just said that the applicant needs to provide a calculation.
yeah, that's the 30%.
Yeah.
That's a 30%. Well, and then it says uninterrupted space. That's the 30%.
Right. So if they're proposing to do the open area, like, you know what I mean? So
Right,
if
those are
it's
lots.
cumulative, then they need to provide that.
Okay.
calculation.
So really of the several items that we've listed, it's the height and the width are the two variances that we're really talking about right now.
Right now. and then-
From what?
Right, then there's E and F.
Right, water course buffer
Okay.
and minimum habitable floor area.
Right, so that one in particular, please take a look at the
Yeah.
plans because Joe identified that, but when we looked at the plans, we think it might just be an issue of mislabeling. So if that's the case, then you might not need variances.
But that's something we could make the referral on that one, and then it's easy to eliminate it if it's no longer needed.
Right.
And then the water, can we just look briefly at what the water course buffer variance is, because this is, the site plan, I know, again, we didn't talk about it a lot today, but there's a whole moving over of a wetlands and it's not a water course, it's just a wetlands that's being rerouted.
Correct.
And where that variance, just remind us where that variance comes into play.
Was that variance actually for the trail where it crosses an actual water course? It's not the wetlands.
The boardwalk
Right.
crossing a culvert in a stream.
Yeah. So it's where the trail.
I think it's that here.
Yeah.
This bit right
So it
there.
crosses the stream, so you can't
Right.
cross the stream without being in the buffer.
Right, and I also think there's a culvert of the stream at the front of the project, isn't it, at the front of the property too? Alright,
Yeah, it says a
Alright,
boardwalk crossing a culvert, so boardwalk crossing and culvert the stream. So it's both. of
Yeah,
those things, sorry.
isn't there a stream on that you're gonna be putting up underneath like the parking lot?
We
There's a
are
wetland being
Right.
relocated.
relocating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that.
Right, so I think that,
So I mean, as we've kind of been discussing from the beginning here, the wetlands and the water courses that are currently on site are not high quality. They're not very beneficial to ecological or, largely they're caused by offsite runoff coming onto our property. It's dirty water. The site's a mess right now. There's not a whole lot of healthy vegetation within the wetlands. So what we're proposing is, of course, disturbing some wetlands and disturbing some water courses, but in the process, we're relocating and we're hopefully rejuvenating them and really repairing them and hopefully bringing them into much healthier conditions. So we think that what we're doing as far as any impacts to wetlands and wetland buffers is really not benefit. We think this is a good project. Our engineers have gone through great detail to put this together, but of course it's open for questions if there's something we can provide. We do have our engineer here this evening. Specifics.
Yeah, I mean, so I think from my perspective, I mean, with the first series of the more bulk related, sorry, I'm just trying to open these up wisely. Sure. The first, I guess the height, the width, and actually honestly even the floor area, which is just maybe a question, those are pretty straightforward. I think we were able to say that the planning board may be able to deal with the uninterrupted space and minimum open area. So then the water course buffer, one of the things that we're going to talk about tonight is referral to EAC, and as part of the secret review, that's kind of the only place where I think there's a little bit of risk that things may be changing or in a degree that it might impact any kind of variance you get. So that's one item where I'm somewhat ambivalent.
I guess my question is that variance actually related to the building or is it just related to the trail?
Sounds like it's related, but my understanding of what we're looking at is that we have the boardwalk, which is the trail, and I don't have any issue with that. But then there's a culvert, which is related to the site intervention for the building. If you can,
I mean, I don't have any further detail about what, aside from what's in the denial letter itself, I don't know what exact elements. We did provide on page C103, the wetland and water course disturbance plan. Of course, this shows existing conditions, so it's not entirely clear to me whether or not the disturbance that we need a variance for the existing conditions or proposed conditions.
right.
I mean, if it's proposed conditions.
We don't have Joe tonight, right?
Right.
No, I mean, I think when we were reviewing the variances because they're the wetland and that water course, the stream or whatever at the beginning that's going to be under the parking lot, that's technically
A water course, yes.
Yeah. I think one of the pipes are discharging from the streets going through there and then they put the building on that location.
Right, and it may be that component of it is intrinsic to the project, and so that you may feel comfortable, if we go forward with the variance there, and there's, there may be changes because of EAC or any other, or our secret review. So if we make that referral, that may or may not have to change based on what happens after that.
So
body.
again, zoning board can't approve the variances until you complete secret.
Right.
So if something changes through the course of your secret review, there's time to change it before the zoning board. Before they give approvals, but it might not be a bad idea for you to find out if the zoning board is open to.
Right.
Or has any concerns with these variants.
Right. Give them an opportunity to come back to us with any of those concerns. I think that makes sense.
And I think in the grand scheme of things, this board does have the wetland approval authority, so it's not like zoning board can grant anything with that respect that's going to overcome what this board essentially will be doing at the end of the project.
No, but we obviously take the findings and the reports of those other agencies, very seriously. So it's important for us.
Yeah, it's sort of this distinction between the 25-foot buffer from a water course, which is something that existed before the wetlands law, and then what you're looking at under the wetlands law.
Right, because that water course buffer is a zoning component, not a wetlands law component.
Correct.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. So I think that was a good conversation to have had. I think, any other kind of questions on zoning? On the zoning referral? On the board, I think. My sense is we can make a referral tonight and it can kind of help to move the process. And then, I think there was plenty in both Valerie's and Tony's memos regarding, particularly the secret review, which I think is really the next place that we go to, not tonight, but when we get a little additional information, we can kind of nail that down. There were, issues related to, I think, the Army Corps, related to, was it the historic resources? Yeah, okay, so there's work that you guys need to do to get us a little further along in that respect. EAC is also critical to that. So I guess tonight we can we've not made the EAC referral, is that
Right.
okay? So we need to refer you to the EAC. We can make these zoning referrals that we just talked about, and then we'll reaffirm our intent to be the lead agency.
Yeah, why don't we do that, and then we'll circulate notices, the interested agencies, and then hopefully that will start any comments from them.
Okay. All right. So then procedurally, based on where we are right now, can we have a motion to reopen the public hearing on this?
I was out for making a motion to reopen the public hearing.
Nina Aaron, second motion.
Any objections? No objections. Motion carries. We're now in a public hearing. There is nobody else in the room. I will note to speak. Is there anybody on Zoom who'd like to speak? Use the hand raise function. And there's nobody. And I'm just going to look at Maddie. She's going to shake her head. I'm going to say nobody's said anything to the village. Just making sure we're all covered. Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Michael Aronson, motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Okay. So I mean, do you guys have any questions for us?
You want to second that motion?
Oh, sorry. I'm jumping ahead. It's getting late. Had a really long day.
Did you have a second?
Second the motion.
All right. Any objections? No objections. Motion carries. The public hearing is adjourned. Do you guys have any questions for us at this point?
I think we're pretty clear about the next steps. We're hoping to go to zoning board, get that review started, at least, and hear some positive.
And the EAC.
And the EAC. Okay, so then with that, and I'll just double check. Tony, we covered everything.
Yeah,
Something,
no, that's
you know,
fine.
if they got
Continue to work through and.
Yeah.
Is there a more recent memo than September? Is there something?
No, that was,
Okay, I just want to make sure I wasn't.
yeah, I have it in front of me. I'll actually tell you the date. September 23rd, 22, yes,
Okay.
2022.
Making sure I didn't miss.
Yeah.
Visit met, you've had a site visit.
Yeah, we met out in the field to talk through it. There's things to work through, but again,
Yeah.
there might be some decisions that are made that, do you want us reviewing this, and things might change, and
That makes sense to me.
so kind of get through those processes.
All right, Valerie, you're good.
Yeah.
Linda, we're good. Okay, so I think we can do this as a combined motion right now at this point. So what we're looking to do is we just described, which is to reaffirm our intent to be lead agency.
Recirculate your notice of.
Recirculate this. Make our referral to the EAC and make the zoning or variance referrals, which I guess maybe if I just use the nomenclature from Valerie's letter, which would be for variances A, B, E, and F, understanding that there's some questions about E and F, but it makes sense to make the referral now. Okay, so we have a motion from the board to make the
Bobby Bowker making a motion to recirculate the 10th lead agency and to make a referral to ZBA and the EAC.
second
Michael Aronson, second.
and a roll call.
Michael Aronson,
Aye.
Nina Aaron, aye, Carla Elliott, aye, Robert Bowker,
Aye.
Eric Talbot,
Aye.
Patty Burback, aye, Chair Roy.
Aye. All right, motion carries 7-0. All right, I think we're good here. I would have a motion from the board to adjourn this item.
First time I make a motion to adjourn this item.
Nina Aaron, second.
Any objections? No objections. And-
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. You, very good. All right, and can I have a motion? Sorry, no, is there any? I'll back it up. Anything else? Was there no housekeeping or anything that we needed to?
No, I
take
just
care of,
want to
right?
say that I'm impressed.
And that was when the false start at the beginning of the
Yeah,
month.
that's true. We lost a good like 10-15 minutes. We did.
We thought the same thing.
Just for the board, just for your knowledge that there is a work session item tomorrow evening about the payment in lieu of parking. Potentially for.
Okay, that's super helpful. Thank you.
Potential changes to the parking.
Okay.
Oh, you need my comments.
Well, we've already, so you'll get a second round of.
I mean, it may behoove us at some point after that, discuss to have a work session with this group to discuss that because. I mean, there are certain applications that there are a handful of applications right now, which that's relevant. They're all very different. But I just want, I would like to make sure that we kind of understand what we're,
Right.
how we're approaching it before we, have that.
Right.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Any objections? No objections, meetings adjourned.
So any change to the zoning